All right, good afternoon. So last week we raised some serious concerns about the House Republicans jamming through a major piece of state property tax law, like an overhaul essentially, without a whole lot of debate on the floor. I mean, less than an hour and a half. And there are sweeping changes that affect our local municipalities in this bill. And so those of you who were here last week know that that was the first thing we talked about. We were very frustrated with that process. So I'm going to stand here and give the majority party a little bit of credit because they sent the bill back to committee. They acknowledged that there was still plenty of work to do, which we heard multiple times from the speaker on the floor as we were perfecting the bill. So I'm so glad that they heard that loud and clear. Providing Missourians with property tax relief is vital, but it has to be balanced with the fact that local governments rely on these property taxes to fund basic services like public safety, infrastructure, things like that. And when we are ramming these property tax fixes through so quickly with very little debate and very little opportunity for these local municipalities to have their voices heard in the conversation, the minority party, of course, gets really concerned about the trajectory of that lawmaking process. So we're grateful that the committee is getting another chance to get it right because the consequences of getting it wrong are severe. In fact, they are going in right now this afternoon to take the bill back up. Speaking of the majority party's mistakes, the governor and the speaker's plan to impose a massive sales tax hike on Missourians appears to be in legislative limbo. It would be nice if it stayed there, certainly, but there are rumors that it's coming back up at some point. The fact is, Missourians have no appetite to pay substantially more for any good or services that they purchase in the state of Missouri. Not only do they not want to, they simply can't afford it. Which brings us to HJR 154 that was passed out of the House today. There's some ballot candy around this measure that is deeply frustrating. What we heard the bill sponsor say today is that we actually don't need to do this. Federal work requirements are already mandated federally now. And so truly, it should be known that the one reason that Republicans want to put this measure in front of Missouri voters is to defund Medicaid expansion. They know because the courts told them explicitly that they cannot do it statutorily, so they have to do it constitutionally. And they are taking it to the voters. But they're putting ballot candy on there to make Missourians think that they're voting on work requirements, which the federal government has already told us we have to impose. I'm happy to take questions.
Are you concerned about the amount of ballot measures that are going to be on the ballot in Missouri this year, statewide ballot measures?
I am really concerned about the number of ballot measures that we are likely to see in November. We heard on the floor from a member of the majority party last week about the idea of moving municipal elections to November and folks getting ballot fatigue. That is real. When you have multiple pages of ballot questions that voters have to research and really understand, some of these issues can feel really complicated to voters. And so, I think that there should be a real concern from lawmakers that voters may not even make it to a second page of a ballot because they're just so exhausted by all of the things that they're being asked. And frankly, it's going to be hard to keep track of all of them.
And just quickly on the VLT bill, your thoughts on that, as well as the bipartisan nature of the yes and no votes?
The VLT conversation is tough because there is a bipartisan divide on both sides, and folks have different reasons for supporting or not supporting the bill. We certainly didn't take a caucus stance on it, as you could see by the votes. What I can tell is that the AG is currently cracking down on illegal gaming machines in this state, and I think that has really sort of thrown a wrench in the conversation here in the building. It's the first time that we've seen real prosecutorial action around this as language is moving through to regulate these machines. And so I think that kind of changed the tenor of the debate in the building. It's pretty clear to me that this bill is dead in the Senate, so unfortunately I think we're going to have to resurrect this conversation again next year.
On the HJR, you were mentioning concerns about potentially defunding Medicaid expansion in the future. Is there particular language that's in the HJR now that you're concerned about that would allow that to happen? Or is it more of a concern about ballot language that we haven't seen yet?
No, it's in the HJR. Essentially, the whole purpose of the HJR is to defund Medicaid expansion, and the only way they can do that again is through the Constitution, which is why they have to put it in front of the voters. And the ballot language around work requirements, that's the ballot candy because it's already required at the federal level. And Missourians may not know that, and so they may think that they're just voting on work requirements.
I'm sorry if this is too technical of a question for this setting, but what's the language in the HJR that would allow them to do that?
I'm happy to get back with you with that exact language, yeah. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, no worries. Yeah.
Can we just get a quick update from Representative Fogel about the budget and the ongoing budget crunch? Or is it a crisis?
I would say if you are cutting $600 million, if the governor's recommending cutting $600 million from the budget and chairman of the House Budget Committee are saying that they want to cut several $billion more, I think we are entering into what would be defined as a budget crisis. We talked about this at length, but last week we had a very long day of public testimony related to some significant cuts in the Department of Mental Health. I don't know how we cut more from the budget in a thoughtful way that doesn't impact the services that state government is intended to provide and doesn't impact the services that some of our states most vulnerable rely on for the quality of life. I know I would anticipate that we see the chairman sub in the next 2 weeks, and we'll know from there what the goal of the chairman and the House is. I would anticipate the number, the $600 million, to grow exponentially, but I couldn't speak to what he intends to cut. I think as the budget makes its way through the legislative process, we are going to, all of us, feel the actions of the majority party, the repercussions of the tax policy implemented over the last few years, and then in fiscal years to come, the repercussions from the implementation of House Resolution 1 at the federal level.
Anything else? All right. Happy Thursday. Have a good weekend.